So feel free, like usual, throw out any questions during the talks. I'm sure the other guys from Veeam and Nutanix will welcome heckling and putting them on the spot. So just some quick housekeeping. So tonight we'll be doing a quick intro, thank our sponsors, do a quick cloud recap. A lot going on in the cloud in the last month. We've got lots of Microsoft events. I was just hearing EMC's just had their event, and Amazon's got a heap of announcements. I think even, and we got stuff happening around OpenStack this month. And I'm sure there's a heap. It seems like the last 4 weeks has been the conference time. For some reason, Microsoft got to have 2 conferences within the last 3 weeks. So go figure. Then I'll just touch on the point of the options that we've got out there for the cloud around DR, backup, and archiving. Then we'll have Jamie from Nutanix talk to us about what they're doing around the cloud. And then Tommy from Veeam about availability. And then if anybody's interested in doing some lightning talks, we'll finish off with those. Just quickly about where we're going with PUG. I think as of this morning it was about 175 members, so we're growing very quickly there. Always looking for volunteers to make this happen, and sponsors and speakers. We have a lot of talented speakers already lining up. But if you're interested, let me know, because we might be just about to have the topic that's on your area of expertise coming up. No agenda, no marketing. We have people from Veeam and Nutanix sponsoring us and talking, but the idea is for us to keep this agnostic and not be some sort of focus drive towards a certain vendor or anything like that. We want to see the options. I'm here to learn from everybody else here as well as you guys while you're here. So that's the idea. And Chris here has been helping us out with putting the videos together, editing those. He's actually here in the flesh in person. So feeling very privileged tonight to have him here. Videos that he's been putting together are up on Coffee Cloud. Actually, on the Coffee Cloud point, somebody I think at the last event, or maybe it was when we were flying the drone, had a little joke about should there be a beer cloud. So I'll actually be touching on that later on. It might have been a few people that night. I think beer was flowing wild and free that night. But there's actually something going on around something out of San Francisco that's will be here in the next couple of weeks. So I'll touch on that as well. So just a quick thank you to our sponsors that make this happen. Nutanix, who are here tonight, they're our major sponsor that help us out with all the great food and everything. All the sponsors contribute to that. The equipment that we've got to put this up online and the videos and everything there. So, and I'd like to welcome to the sponsorship group Tommy and his mob from Veeam for contributing to this event now to make this happen. And on the Trend Micro bit, I don't have the tickets here tonight, but whoever we draw out who's here tonight, I'll let you know. And we've got 2 tickets to the women's FIFA soccer. Can't remember the dates. I think it's sometime in July that's happening. So we'll draw that, and some lucky person here will win that tonight. And feel free to bring me along if you want. There'll be 2 tickets. So yeah, that's it. And Soft Choice, of course, where I'm from, and Bobby here, who's one of our sales reps, who's here every month, like clockwork, helping us set up and everything, and Jake here, who's here as well. If anything you see up here tonight sparks your interest, call out to these guys. They're here to help, and they're contributing their own time to help with this event as well. More than money. I mean, it's one thing for our sponsors to give money, but these guys are, and Drew, of course, Don't forget, Drew's picking the beer out, which seems to be always a big hit. So it is a hard task.
Very good job.
And lastly, just big thank you to CodeCore. I hope I'm not annoying them over here too much with my volume of my voice, but they've been great supporters with the event to make sure that we've got somewhere to come to that's reliable and regular meetup time to make this event happen. So it's great that they've jumped on board. And anybody here who's wanting to learn about programming around the cloud, we were talking about it earlier, there's so much that the cloud is tied into, and programming is one of those things that ties in. So if you have any staff or are interested yourself in doing any training, reach out to myself or Drew. We can point you in the right direction to the people to talk to.
Also, I wouldn't mind pointing out that every couple of months there's an events week here. So we bring people in from the community. We have free lunch and learns. So CodeCore sponsors the pizza, the refreshments, and the space. If you have a topic you'd like to give like a 40-45 minute talk on, every couple of months we do that. So either get in touch with myself or Bronwyn, who's over there maybe, or Shada. I can give you some contact info.
Okay, here's the big one. I don't have a straitjacket this month to amuse everybody with while we get through this, but feel free to yell out and ask any questions about clarification about what's been happening. But this is a quick, very brief recap. Like I said, lots of conferences this month, so that means a lot of announcements that everybody's trying to say me, and get attention. These are the ones that drew my attention. Doesn't mean they are the best things out there for everybody, but I hope I've covered off the major points. So Google Cloud, always a tough one to find things about. Their blog post is very wordy. It's hard to get down to what's actually new and what's just an education lesson on what's already there. But some interesting things I found was they've got 2 bits in beta. Deployment Manager. So this is a bit like CloudFormation and AWS, if anybody's familiar with that. About automatically deploying your environment up there. It's also interesting just to point out, Microsoft Azure has actually announced the same thing. Where is it? Here. They've got also in preview here the template-based compute network storage. So it's good to see that, I was quite surprised that Google didn't already have this. Microsoft, I guess I overlooked it, that wasn't there, but it's a great thing for them to already have, because in Amazon I see it as fundamental for that if you're ever replicating the environment that's already there, a couple of clicks and it's done. And I can't believe I didn't realize that Microsoft didn't already have that there. So that's a pretty big deal, I think. It's something that's pretty standard in Amazon AWS. And then for Google, the big table. So this is NoSQL database as a service. So, and just an example of who's using this at the moment, Gmail, Google Analytics, and SunGuard are already using this. So using the same NoSQL database service that they're using in the back end. The idea is that it's automatically scaling and growing to meet the demands without any sort of pre-provisioning. Microsoft Azure, they had their Ignite conference this week, still going on, and Microsoft Build conference, I think it was last week or the week before. So a ton of announcements that came out of that. I'm still trying to keep up and read up on what's been happening. Some of the quick high-level things that I've seen is they've now got full text search in the SQL preview. A lot of previews mentioned here, which is the equivalent of Google's beta. The template bit that we were just talking about. And they announced at Build the other week that they're aiming to make $20 billion in revenue by the 2018 financial year, which is interesting, seeing that they've already invested $15 billion into the Azure cloud. So they're, I guess that's kind of, I mean, that's 15 billion so far. That's not, I guess they're aiming to break even by 2018, I don't know. But it shows that they're trying to aim towards something profitable, although a lot of analysts are saying that that's quite optimistic that they're aiming for there. So, so we'll see. General availability, some things there from Microsoft is their streaming analytics. So I think we touched on this a couple of months ago when we were talking about the Internet of Things and devices and anything you have out there that you're getting any analytics from. You'll be able to see that in real time now through Microsoft Azure if you're streaming it through there. Also, they've now got premium storage. So this is something that I think Amazon brought out end of last year. Now Microsoft have caught up and now got it as well, which is SSD storage. So instead of magnetic disk, you've got SSDs to choose from. And then the NoSQL document DB has actually gone general availability as well. So stand behind it now. And I think it was 30th of April, Microsoft restructured their backup storage pricing. So they've made it a lot more simple around the storage pricing there, and also they've reduced that barrier as well. So, and this is not for storage such as just simple file level storage. This is also talking about if you've got a VM up there on Microsoft Azure, you can just tick a few boxes and it'll automatically back up your VM without you having to do anything fancy. You just pay a little bit higher premium for that because it's actually there's backup software happening there that you didn't even have to pay for.
Do you know if that backup is like a VSS, QS file system backup?
It's like a snapshot. It's more of a VM snapshot. So
if you've got databases, SQL or Oracle or something, you're gonna open files.
Yeah. So you say if you have a VM that has SQL running inside
SQL or
it.
Exchange or any one of the things that has open file handles on it, you're not going to have a consistent backup. You just snap it.
True. I mean, you've got to take. I'm pretty sure it'd be the same sort of deal where if you're going to do that, you probably want to time your database to shut down just before the snapshot's taken, so that things aren't out of sync. Which isn't always possible, which might be why you look at SQL as a service, because then if you're doing SQL as a service, the backups are going to take that into account. So you do have options there, but just like any backup that's of a full server, I'm sure you'd have to be aware of that. Yeah, it depends. But that's another great reason why SQL as a service is so much more attractive than, I mean, not only are you getting a cheaper price and you don't have to look after the Windows environment, but things like backup are a lot more simpler as well because they're looked after for you. Okay, so on to OpenStack. I think I've been mentioning this probably for the last 2 months out. The summit only 2 weeks away now. So that's here in Vancouver, the 18th of May to the 22nd. And excuse me, Cloud Beers. So this is a group in San Francisco, I think. Drew, is it? San Francisco that they're based. And they're invading our shores up here. And they're doing a pub crawl on the 21st of May. Not that I am encouraging alcoholism. But it should be a good event. They've already got, I think, about 30 people RSVP'd, and they only really organised in the last few days where it's looking like it's going to be. So there's the address anyway. That'll take you to the page, and it'll be pretty obvious once you get to the page which one's for the Vancouver pub crawl. And they're asking at the moment for ideas and suggestions of where around here that we should go. So I think I've told them Gastown and Yaletown.
I haven't chimed in yet.
Yeah, Drew, your credentials of choosing beer for this event should, I'll put in a good word and say, listen to Drew. So yeah, that's happening. So RSVP to that if you're interested. Be very interesting to network with people like-minded around the cloud and see what's happening. And obviously, because we're so close to so many US cities, obviously the OpenStack Summit is going to draw a lot of those cloud people into town. So it'll be good to network with people and find out what's happening in the US, what's so different about there over that border from here in Canada. And just finally, Amazon. So just quickly, Cognito, which is the mobile data service, which can record things about what's happening on the mobile app that's running, such as gaming and things like that, now is allowing logging credentials from Twitter and digits. Glacier Vault access policies. So this will give a better level of security around people accessing your archived data that's up in Glacier. Veeam imports. So this I think is interesting. If anybody's ever imported their VMs to AWS before, it has been quite a painful process where you actually have to let it run through if it dies halfway through, and even what you see, like, so what happens is you have your virtual machine on premise, you run the command, it starts going up to Amazon storage S3, and it breaks it up into a million little, kind of like zip files, and then moves it into the EC2. So if it breaks at any point there's no real way of continuing. Now we're able to actually have a lot more options. We don't just have this one single path to do. We could actually upload to S3 storage our own VM beforehand with whatever tool we like, and then import it straight from there. Or if you've got terabytes of VMs, you can now use their shipping, where you can get a USB drive, ship it off to them. They can put it in their storage, and then you can move it in, which is great because previously you had to do it as one complete move from on-premise straight up to the cloud. So I think that's a great move. It's one of those things where you scratch your head and go, why didn't they have this at the start? Especially the amount of days I've wasted where I've had to start again and start from scratch. So that's great. There's a new size of EC2 server now that's out. That's around graphics performance. Oh, and the Docker service, the EC2 container service, has now gone general availability. So that's pretty cool because I must say I must have been really busy since that was announced back in November, because I was dying to try this out, try it out on preview, and get my name in there to try out. And time's just gone so quickly that I don't feel like I've been. I'd actually semi-forgotten about it, and now it's general availability. I've got no excuses. I'm going to have to try this weekend and see what it's like. Storage gateway support for Semantic. So this is just highlighting the latest version of Semantic is now supported by a storage gateway. If anybody doesn't know what that is, the idea is that you can be using, I mean, we're talking about backup tonight, so this was a good one to put in here. I thought if you're using Semantic Backup or any other backup software out there that uses tape drives to send a tape, Amazon Storage Gateway, their BTL service, will actually it's kind of like it's tricking the software like Semantic to think that Amazon's cloud is the tape drive. And so it'll treat the cloud like it was a tape, and then send your backups up to the cloud and index them that way. So there's a lot of different software out there that supports it natively, and Semantic's backup exec version 15 has been added to that list. Although the previous versions also supported it as well. So if you're running those, just thought this is a good topic point due to tonight's topic to raise.
Interesting.
AWS numbers. Oh yeah, so Microsoft are revealing some numbers, but Amazon was a big deal last month. Amazon had not released any numbers. It had been all this cloak and dagger. Their investors didn't even know how much they were making out of Amazon AWS services. The theory was from everybody that they were breaking even or making a loss. I mean, how could you do 1 cent a gig for archive storage and still make money? But it turns out that the first quarter of this year they made $1.57 billion in revenue, $6 billion in revenue in 2014, and in profits this year they're on target to make $1 billion. So yeah, not the break-even number that everybody thought. I think it works out they're making about 17% margin on everything that they're doing on average across their whole services. So I think I've had this question in the past at these user groups. Somebody said to me, when are they going to raise their prices? I think the great thing about hearing these numbers, and I get questions like that, is I can pretty confidently say now that I don't think they're going to raise prices. If anything, they've got some wiggle room to lower prices if things get more competitive.
Competition too.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Microsoft, they're sounding like they're more close to breaking even with their numbers, and Amazon's got this nice little revenue cash cow coming in. So whether they re-inject that into AWS or whether they keep trying to flog hardware like the Fire and Fire mobile phone and whatever Fire thing they do next to lose money, yeah, who knows. Does anybody have anything there or anything that they heard that's happening in the cloud that they wanted to let everybody know about? Any announcements that I might have missed that I think are blaringly obvious that I should have yelled out? No? Okay. Okay, so options. So this is let me just check the time. Okay, we're going good. So just some options here. This is all about moving to the cloud. I mean, I've really kept very high level on this diagram. There are a lot more options than this. I didn't want to just have a screen just blurred with brand names and everything. But I think brand names are the best way to get a quick message across. So storage gateway, like here, these two here, I've just picked Microsoft Azure and Amazon because I deal with them the most. And I'm always openly honest that I am a little bit biased towards those two. Storage Gateway is a service that you run on VMware or Hyper-V as a VM, and that will move any storage that you put in there locally and replicate it up to Amazon's cloud. Now on the other hand, in comparison, Microsoft Azure, you can actually buy a physical hardware box. So they've actually got the hardware looked after. So the problem with Amazon's bit is that you need the hardware already. The great thing about Microsoft's bit is if you are looking for hardware, then they've got that appliance there, and it's going to be customized hardware for the whole idea of caching and replication to the cloud. So if you are looking for hardware, that's a great idea, great solution there to expand and move. And also the bandwidth and everything that's going on there, optimization around making sure that, I mean, that's one of the biggest concerns is bottlenecks. You're going to be pushing all this data up to the cloud. Is it actually going to bottleneck your network? And the other thing is, you can start using these things more than just backup and archive. You could use them for your common file systems as well. So that's probably the next evolution. You probably start off with backup and archive, but if you wanted to, you've got local storage that you're using, and you could use those as also your primary storage as well. And then this third box here is all about software-defined backup. So we've got Veeam here tonight. Tommy here will let us know what we can do there. You've got batch files and scripting that you could do some sort of, for those of us that like to get our hands dirty and spend thousands of hours monitoring and doing things manually ourselves instead of jumping onto things that are pre-built for us, which I'm guilty of. So we can use things like rsync and other things there. And then there's Cloudberry out there. If nobody's aware of them, they do a lot of different little very simple program that can get the basics up there at least. And then over here we've got up here in the top corner, just highlighted some hardware boxes. So down here we'll talk about StoreSimple's hardware from Microsoft, but a lot of people out there already have invested in hardware like Nutanix, Nimble, Commvault, NetApp, Riverbed, and you can actually, even if your model or version doesn't support the cloud officially, there are ways where we can work in Storage Gateway or other products to tie those together and get them up to the cloud as well. It's actually, I've done a lot of work there where I've taken those legacy hardware and actually brought them up to today's standards of cloud and integration there and tied them in. And pretty much most of those solutions now are actually starting with their latest versions, or by default have an option to tie into the cloud as well. Does anybody have any? I know that's a lot to cover in 7 minutes, but
this is all so bandwidth intensive that this is just completely unviable unless you have appropriate bandwidth, right? Depending on the size of your data set, right?
Everything's different. I mean, Riverbed's a great one. Like usually I start off with Storage Gateway if I'm talking about Amazon. But Riverbed is an even better option. You've got a lot of compression. I mean, that's what Riverbed's known for, is making sure that those things get between the two. NetApp have actually invested in Riverbed's technology, their Steel Store technology, because Steelhead. They've actually recognized that they need to address that exact problem. So yeah, I have clients that say, look, we don't care, as long as you can get the backup done outside of office hours, then it's fine. But then I've got clients that say, look, our backups are so big each night, we need to look at something like Riverbed and that. So there's always different ways of doing things. The other advantage, I've crossed out the old tape drives there. The advantage I see a lot of the time, so things like that, is it's a lot easier to do things like forever incrementals. So with your tape drives, if you're doing forever incrementals, a lot of the time, you've got to grab the first one, the last one, and then do everything in between. But if it's just a disk sitting there in the cloud, you can pull down whatever you like at any time and just do the index through the cloud.
But then the whole aspect, I'm not putting this down, I mean, this is a
Yeah.
natural evolution, and it depends on the size of your data set, but then there's the restore issue, right? How large is that data set? How long is it going to take to restore it? How practical is this model? It doesn't work for everybody.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of people in the movie industry and things like that where it's sort of everything has its own use case. I mean, it also depends on what your recovery rate. A lot of clients I work with, we keep 3 months locally, and then the rest of it's more for legacy archiving for legal reasons and things like that. With the multimedia industry, we're doing a lot of streaming. So they're recording things and it's getting streamed straight up to the cloud straight away. So there's an offsite backup immediately. So if somebody lost that footage or accidentally hit erase or something, it's been sent up there straight away. So there's a lot of other technologies that kind of gets out of the scope of this. I was more sticking to traditional fixed hardware within a corporation sort of thing. But if you're out on the road and things like that, there's a lot of technology on top of this that can do smart streaming, which is sending your backups straight up to the cloud. And once it's up there, you can start replicating it east-west and put in different sort of tiers of storage and things like that.
It's really just the connectivity speeds and the window, right? Like, I mean, if your data set's large and you don't have that backup window, there's no way you're getting it into the cloud, let alone making it happen locally over the LAN, right? So, I mean, this just isn't viable for a lot of our customers because the data sets are too large.
Again, it depends. Everybody's different, so I would definitely say for this, probably 70% of people, it's at least worth looking at.
Sure.
And a lot of the time I find that it's actually, I had a client the other day that said that the cost of their tapes each year was the same cost that they're now spending to do their backups to the cloud. But everybody's different, and it's definitely, the thing I like about the cloud is, at least with the big public providers anyway, is it isn't cookie cut so much that people can't find a different way to make it work for them. And a lot of my job is not just 100% cloud, a lot of it's hybrid, which means I'm looking at both. And actually a lot of the time, like that other 30% of the time, I actually turn around to customers and say, look, cloud's not going to work for you.
For us, this is tier 3. Tier 3 after tier 2, after a local backup, tier 3.
Yeah, yeah.
They probably do a staged backup where they back up locally to some kind of SAN or disk storage and then.
Yeah. So I'm saying this is tier 3, this is after the local backup.
The other thing that also comes up a lot of the time is thinking about moving your production to the cloud instead of having it on premise. So some clients do that and back up to on premise instead of.
It depends on the size of the data set. You know, like I'd be curious to know what everybody has for connectivity here, because we still don't have. Like you need fiber at a minimum with a relatively large data set, and I'd like to know how many people have fiber connectivity in their businesses. I bet it's the minimum.
Again, it depends. I mean, I've done this solution for clients with petabytes, so it's definitely. But then again, they didn't have the instant demand that some clients might have.
It's totally awesome. I love it. It's great. It's the evolution of things.
No.
I'm just saying
Criticism's
that
good.
I'm not
Yeah.
criticizing.
Oh well.
This
Yeah.
is just the reality of some people's workflows. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
This is just.
We don't
maybe
want
it's
to.
your
We
time.
don't want to be talking in this bubble that we think that this is the holy grail, and it's not. It's definitely not. It's definitely a lot better than it was back in 2012, where I was telling people that the cloud was probably for 20% of people. I'd probably say it's probably for 70–80% of people now, to at least some point. So, but yeah. No, but I keep joking about the fact that Iron Mountain probably hates me because I'm stealing a lot of their business. So anyway, without further ado, I think yes, we've got Jamie up next. I think I've stolen a bit of his time, but
I was going to say this.
hey, if you're prepared to put this on a public space, I'm going to steal it.
I need to get rid of that. Yeah. That's a good looking guy up there. Who's this? Iceberg, right? What happened?
Holy cow!
That was before my Cisco days. You can see what it does to me.
No problem.
Anyways, hello everyone. So my name's Jamie Hodge. I've been with Nutanix for a little over a year. And before that, I worked for Cisco for 10 years, where obviously it took its toll on me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first kind of go through, for those that don't know about Nutanix, very high level, not trying to hit you with marketing, and then dive right into obviously the DR and Connect and how we work with Azure and Amazon. So forces of disruption. These are things that obviously we've seen happening for the last 2–4 years, where you've got spindles going to flash. You've got a lot of flash players out there. Virtualized servers, that's been going on for 15+ years now. Private data centers to hybrid. This is the interesting component that's happening a lot right now. And you see a lot of people saying, I want to have the private and the public. You got the Patriot Act in the States, so no one wants to punt things to Amazon at this point, but they want to have something locally. And there's others that don't care, that aren't limited like the government is and the banks. Bigger iron purchases going to fractional consumption. So the days of buying the big fridges and of siloed sands and then buying compute in a silo, they're weakening, because basically you can get to a point where the only reason they existed is how complex it was and project driven to actually create your first SAN. I mean, most of the time it would take a month and a half. Imagine a world where you could bring something up within the hour. And something one of our senior vice presidents said to the entire Nutanix organization a couple months ago, and it really rang a bell for me, was if you look back at Apple, when they first created the iPod, what were they trying to do? What was the iPod? Music. Right? Did it do anything miraculous as compared to the Walkmans and the CD players of the day? It did pause, play, reverse, played more. It was nice in form factor and it had more disk drive space for more songs. It didn't remake a lot. What it did do is take over 20 years of old traditional software, old ways of doing things, and brought it into one collapsible form factor. That's what it did. Now, let's drive forward from there. iPhone, iPad, iCloud, iPay, iMatch. Do you realize today, you look at a consumer product like Apple, and it's easier to set up and share your information with than enterprise products, right? How many enterprise products come out of the crate and set themselves up, and all of a sudden you're sharing your photos and you're sharing your data with minimal time? So this is kind of what our founders were trying to bring to the enterprise world. Back in 2003, one of our co-founders came from Google. He helped create the Google file system. And with that, he's saying, if you look at a Google, Yahoo, Facebook, if you look at their data centers, there's no traditional SANs. The system is self-aware, dynamic, self-healing. If you go look at a data center, there's 7 large ones Google has around the world. They'll house 5,000 to 10,000 servers. There'll be 4 guys taking care of 5,000 servers. And they're walking around, it looks to me like dim sum, where they're walking around and saying, hey, hard drive failed, pull it out, put a new one in, no config, right? So we think about fractional consumption. If you would consume things when you need it, if it was easy to do. Whereas it hasn't been like that for the last 20 plus years. So you'd have a big project management chain in a month and a half. Let's get this whole thing in, and I think, thumb in the wind, I think we're good for, 3 years. And then you'll come back to that customer 3-5 years down the road, say, how much of that 50 terabytes are you using? Oh, 20, 25. Wow, that to me is wasted money, right? So you're gonna see with Nutanix, what we brought is simplicity, right? What we brought is kind of that idea of the iPod, how easy it's taken over for traditional ways. Now we want to get into the iPay, iMatch, iCloud. This kind of ties into the DR and Amazon and Azure. So why not have a system that's so easy to integrate where the data center is up in an hour, next thing it's doing, I want to offload to Amazon. Sure. Couple clicks, put in your actual username and password, and start firing up stuff to Amazon. They do run Nutanix in their S3. Now, under the hood, I'm just going to build the slide out. You look at Google file systems. I've kind of already mentioned how quick and simple it is for them to scale and how dynamic it is. HTML5, gone are the days of Java. I hope there's no Java developers in here. REST API. There's so many third-party apps out there looking to integrate with people who are open source to REST APIs. Cassandra database. They say 60% of databases being created today are no SQL. Just inherently, because of how dynamic it is, how it creates a chain that's self-healing. Paxos algorithm. Anyone out there who knows what Paxos is? Besides being an algorithm. So Paxos, at the time that I read about this, and this is about half a year ago, there's only 5 companies in the entire world that run Paxos. This is the ability of doing parallel processing. This is when we're actually dropping data into this Cassandra ring, and what this means is when you created a cluster within minutes on Nutanix, we want to make sure that the data is being splashed around all drives. We don't want any hotspots. At the same time, when we actually access the data, we want something to say, don't just go look at the one processor, ask all the processors to go hunt the metadata. That takes parallel processing. The 5 companies, Google, Facebook, Yahoo, Nutanix, leave the other one out. But basically, you think about a system that as you add another node, you add another compute power that's going to help hunt the data. So we don't have the legacy problems of waterfall effect 6 months down the road when you're trying to access data, the performance tails off. Within Nutanix, it never tails off because of things under the hood like this, right? I'm just going to skip some of this stuff. Using a lot of those inherent pieces that large companies created, we created the Nutanix distributed file system. Now, many people have heard of Hadoop, originating from Google, creating Hadoop, MapReduce. MapReduce is the ability for the system where I try to use an analogy on this. It's like playing a game of poker. So if we're all sitting around the table here, and I ask Aaron, I said, you know, Aaron, find me the ace of spades. Why are we all sitting around just watching Aaron find the ace of spades? Why wouldn't I give that deck of 52 to everybody? And we all hunt it at the same time. That's the power of map redos. That's the power of Hadoop, the power of GFS. When you actually go in and do self-completion, you start typing into the Google search engine, you're using map redos. That's why it's self-completing. It's using all those 5,000 servers in every data center to hunt the data at the same time in parallel using Paxos algorithm. Right? Cassandra, the database we're using, originating from Amazon and Google. They created it. This is what is under the hood for Nutanix as well. So what I like to ask here is when you look at these companies on the left, what's one, just the basic common thing that you notice about them? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you read Yahoo, Facebook, and Google?
Huge data sets.
Right. Are they scalable? I would have to say so, right? I mean, they're doing pretty well, right? What they brought to the game are the pieces that are inside Nutanix. If you look at how they're doing it, why isn't the rest of the world doing it? The rest of the world's stuck in 20-year-old technology. We're all doing cassette tapes and Walkmans. Architecturally, let's get this pretty quick here. You have your top of rack switches. You'll have your node, which is compute, RAM, storage. It'll be bound together with the Nutanix controller VM, running those Hadoop systems, the map redos, the Paxos algorithms in the background, the Cassandra databases. And then self-bound, it does iSCSI calls to the direct attached storage. All this is dynamic. It's just for your reference point. There's nothing for you to configure. So now into why we're here today, and that's on the DR, and from there, I just want to give you some background on Nutanix. So on DR protection, so you can have a Nutanix cluster, use Veeam, Commvault, Aperture, left me out, to an offsite backup, or you can use a Nutanix to Nutanix cluster where it's integrated in the software. We'll do a VM-centric backup, so we can group VMs together, do just one VM or multiple. We can back up based on the node, on the actual block, and whether we send it to another Nutanix node or send it offsite through Veeam is up to you. Metro availability. This is a true synchronous stretch cluster. So when that virtual machine actually sends a random read or write, it gets a response from both data centers. More importantly is the write. So when it writes to data center A or B, it'll get a TCP acknowledgement northbound to that existing VM. So if you cut the power on one data center, you've got an automatic hot tier for the actual data from that VM. This works within, I don't know if it's on this slide, but you have to have within 5 milliseconds round trip time, or within 400 kilometers. There's also built into the system async DR. So this is a one-to-many, many-to-one. The ability that you can have one cluster back up to another cluster to another cluster. Realizing when you do this within Nutanix, this is literally taking you a couple minutes. When you create a remote site, you give it the IP address, how much bandwidth it wants to use, do you want to compress that data, and what's your RPO or RTO. Now into the cloud. So today with Nutanix, it could be a remote site that is another Nutanix block, or it could be into Amazon, it's the SU cloud. We're doing snaps and clones to Amazon today. We're roadmapped for them to actually become DR as well. And we're a few months away here from doing the same with Azure. So within our Prism UI, it's literally a drop down. You give it your credentials for Amazon, and they will run Nutanix software, all that goodness that I mentioned before, in the cloud for you. And you can manage it as well within our Prism UI. Our management is integrated on every single node. You cannot kill it. It's part of the software.
So are you saying the visibility would be identical, whether it's on the S3 or whether it's an offsite cluster?
Absolutely. Yeah. You have control of your RPRTO. You have control of the remote site inside our Prism. You actually tell it how many times, where to go, when to go, and then you can drag the clone, migrate the clone. Right now, the thing you can't do is liven up the VM to Amazon. You can only do snaps and clones to it. They're not going to be a pure DR yet. That is roadmap. And then again, sorry, I'll just go back to here. We also have, for DR local, we have local service providers that are running this as well. So as a customer, today, you can go ahead and buy your primary cluster and then offload to a system like Robson Communications or something like that. Shameless plug.
You're saying that they're hosting for red clusters.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because if you look at it, in the end, a lot of the costs for having snaps and clones is quite a lot. Why not have just what you're using, right? It's all part of that, a pay-as-you-grow model. Yeah. We're going to start off with snaps and clones in Azure, and then we'll go DR with it as well. And that's supposed to be, it's supposed to be like a month and a half. Now, that being said, we're also running, we can run Azure on the local Nutanix DRs already. We have someone already running Azure Cloud. We are also Azure PAC certified. So it's quite easy to run Azure onto Nutanix. We integrate with Docker as well, not that that's cloud-based. And that's it. Any questions?
So we're running probably about 5 minutes behind time, so it's not too bad. But I'll, still got Ryan's name.
It's okay. I was plugged in last minute.
So,
High school photo?
Yeah. I got the photo up there. I'm Tommy this whole time. Tommy's like, I spent hours photoshopping my photo. You gotta get that up there.
Sorry, it's a good looking kid.
I'll leave you to you.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks everyone for inviting us. Thanks for setting it up, actually. So this is our first time here. I am not Ryan, I am Tommy Loy. Been with Veeam for 2.5 years now, so it's a pleasure to be here. Actually, for my sake and understanding, actually, first time being here, what does the crowd make up here, actually? How many of you know of Veeam or Veeam customers today? Fantastic. Half the room. Fantastic. And how many of you are actually on the VAR MSP side of things? As a supplier or vendor? How many of you are end users? Okay. Awesome. Because the messaging would be different.
Who's here just for the beer?
Who's here just for the beer? And the food. Awesome. Okay. Well, I just cut down the slides I got plugged into this last minute. Actually, just Brian couldn't make it, so I plugged in last minute here. So I was given a deck that was 40 plus slides, and I was told that we had 10 to 15 minutes. So so we cut that in half. It's about 20 slides. I'm not quite sure what slides I cut out, so I'll kind of wing it a little bit here. But I'll talk a little bit about who Veeam is, where we came from, what is our value proposition for you guys. I'll try just fly through that, and then we'll get into the 3-2-1 backup rule that we always try to adhere to, and the Cloud Connect, and some up-to-date announcements and to keep everyone up to date and open Q&A. Hopefully that'll fit within the 10 to 15 minute mark. Okay, so Veeam was founded back in 2006, and a phenomenal growth curve that we've had, thanks to you, to our partners, and to our end users who have adopted the technology. Today we have more than 1,700 employees. We started first shipping the product in 2008, and ever since then, as you can see in 7 years, that's our revenue growth curve. We just finished last year just under $400 million in revenue. Same thing with the customer count. We're expecting to end 2015 at about 180,000 customers. I think we're probably going to blow away that goal, because right now we're in April, we're already at over 150,000. So, and that's pretty phenomenal. We're not slowing down at all. As you can see, in the first 6 years, it took us 6 years to get to 91,000, but all of a sudden, 1 year alone last year, we added another 40 to 50,000 customers. And really, I'm just showing this not to say, oh, Veeam, yeah, we're doing it. I'm trying to show this in terms of credibility, right? You guys have given us feedback. We've took a stab in the dark in terms of providing technology to the marketplace. Thanks to you guys have been adopting the technology. Even though we're virtual only play, we're here to help out the virtualized data centers. I'll get a little bit into that. But still, people have been adopting the technology. We'll get a little bit into that, in the value prop. And it's not just, it's also we're recognized by the industry as well. A lot of industry awards. In fact, at VMworld, we're still the only vendor to have won Best Technology 2 years in a row. Every version that we release, there's something disruptive, something awesome that we come out with. And so we're really proud of that. So, okay.
What's new with the current, is it version 8 now?
Yeah, version 8 now, yeah.
So I'm still running Summit, so what's new?
So there's actually quite a lot of things that are new. In fact, we just released update 2 just last week, I believe, in the past week or so. And really, update 2 is, we've included some new features in there. There's more than 100 new features and enhancements, a lot of bug fixes as well. In fact, the only reason why we didn't call it an R2 or an 8.5 or 8.1 was because it would have added to the shipping time. It would have added another month before we released the product. So we just released it as an update, and it's out there right now. So I encourage you guys, for the existing customers, take a look at the release notes. Go check out. There's a lot of details in there, that minor fixes and enhancements that, frankly, I'm not aware of yet. I've got to look at those release notes. So, in terms of our value prop, I think what I'll do is I'll skip some of this stuff. Really, here are the key questions that everybody's asking a lot, most of the time. How quickly can you recover what you need quickly? How do you reduce the risk of data loss? And how do you verify that your data is actually recoverable at the time of backup automatically? A lot of people don't test their backups, right? We can actually help in that area. How do you actually put your backups to work? And making your investments in that backup infrastructure and putting it to work. A lot of people just make all this investment in the back only to use it when you need to recover a single file or a service. But why not use it for something else? Put it up an on-demand sandbox and maybe test a patch or a Windows patch of some sort, and use your recent data set or replica to test that patch to see if it works in that sandbox environment before you actually roll it out into production. And obviously you want to have a visibility in your modern data center. In the modern data center today, it's Hyper-V, vSphere, modern storage systems such as Nutanix, and we'll talk a little bit about the cloud today as well. And those are our 5 key pillars. So, what do you guys have today? Are you guys still backing up directly to tape, back from the 70s? And seriously, don't laugh, actually. One of the largest ministries in Alberta just switched over to Veeam, and they were backing up directly to tape using IBM. And it took a little while. That was a long cycle to kind of get them out of that, and we're helping them out now and modernize their infrastructure. Or monolithic disk and such. You've had you've always had to, you've invested a lot in a certain vendor, and there's a lot of vendor lock-in. Well, guess what? Vendors like us, like Nutanix, we're coming in and we're decoupling that. We're completely vendor agnostic. You can use any storage system you want, and we'll work with you. Any application will work with you, as long as it's virtualized in Hyper-V or vSphere. So we're able to actually bring down the recovery times and the recovery points to less than 15 minutes. And that's our brand promise. In a lot of cases, even less than a minute. We actually had a customer who posted in our forums and saying, wow, Veeam is fantastic. We just recovered an individual email back into production in 58 seconds. That's unheard of in this type of environment. And that's what we call a modern day tool. So what's this? Ah, yes. Talking about all that growth and such, we only sell one technology. That's all we sell. It's just the Veeam Availability Suite. All that growth just came from that one investment. That's all we do. We are very specialized, and we do it very, very well. Anyone that tells you that they do it better than us, I'd say do your due diligence and ask a few more questions. Okay, so let's get into some of this offsite stuff here. So the 3-2-1 rule. We always try to adhere by this. Always keep 3 copies of your data at any given time, 2 copies on 2 different sets of media, and 1 copy always offsite. In the offsite piece, that's where we start talking about the cloud piece. Because traditionally, what have people been doing? Tape, right? Put it onto tape, and you ship it offsite. That's your offsite copy. But now, as Matt was talking about earlier on, Azure and AWS, the cost of storage is so low now that it almost makes sense. Why not just put it on cheap disk elsewhere?
Bandwidth isn't cheap.
Huh?
The bandwidth is not cheap.
Hey.
I think that's what he was referring to.
See, and I don't have the features slide here, unfortunately. I think I may have cut that out, but our software comes with built-in WAN acceleration, so that's why we're trying to solve that challenge as well. And because we know some clients, they spend an arm and a leg, right, on bandwidth. So it's in version 8, exactly right. And like, if you're using your bandwidth specifically only for moving your backups off-site, man, have you got good value with the WAN acceleration, because it's built into our software. Because we already know how it works. Is we already know what data is on the target and the source. So why do we send that data over if we already know the data is already on the target? So therefore, you're really, truly reduced. It's a very specific WAN acceleration. When you're talking about Riverbed and stuff like that, that's a generic WAN acceleration tool. Any data, that's almost like true WAN acceleration. Ours, I'll be fair, it's almost maybe a little bit of spin. It's almost like a bandwidth buster, right? We just reduce the amount of data that's being sent over because of the algorithm. We already know what data is being sent over the WAN. Therefore, saving some money on bandwidth and making it possible to have that copy off-site.
But it always comes down to how large is the data set, how large is the delta, how fat is the pipe. Inevitably, that is the bottleneck. It's not how efficient your dedupe is or your compression algorithm.
Yeah, it just depends on the amount of data. Absolutely correct. And so, that's why you always have to kind of prove it out, right? Every environment's a little bit different. So, yeah, that's what we're talking about. Some limited bandwidth. It's expensive. Data volumes can get pretty large. I mean, one of our largest customers is University of British Columbia, just being localized here. Several thousand VMs. They're going to add another 2,000 to 3,000 VMs in the next couple of years because they're going to be a service provider for some other universities in the province. They're using Veeam with the NetApp storage, with their NetApp storage. I think they've got a bit of Nutanix in there as well. But, they'll use some WAN acceleration to move data over as well because it's built into the product, right? And obviously there's lack of resources in terms of just building and maintaining your own offsite solution. These are some of the challenges in terms of getting backups offsite. So we do offer native tape support if you don't want to use the cloud, the old way. You can also replicate as a DR solution. Keep it on premise or in the cloud. Or backup copy jobs to a secondary site, essentially moving a backup set just moving over to another location and still retaining the full grandfather, father-son retentions and such. And I want to talk about Cloud Connect because that piece here, we just came out with this brand new in version 8 last November. And in our own internal sales kickoff or company kickoff in January, our head of R&D came out and talked to us and said, wow. And at that point, the product was on the market for 2 months now. He said, the uptake on this feature has been so phenomenal by the marketplace, we're diverting our R&D resources to accelerate our investment in Cloud Connect. And why I say that is because if you guys choose to leverage Veeam for your offsite, we're in here to stay. We're accelerating the investments here, and we'll continue to support you guys moving down the road. So, so it's a fast, easy way to get backups offsite to a service provider. We're 100% channel, so we don't have our own cloud, but you can go to SoftChoice, for example, and they may have partnerships such as with Robson Communications or whoever else. I'm just plugging some names, the folks that are here. They made the time to come here, right? But you know, we are agnostic in terms of this service provider. There are a lot of choices out there. Whatever relationships that you guys have, whatever trust that you guys have in the marketplace. So you don't have to invest in any infrastructure at all. You just offload it to your service provider. That's it done. Right. So, what's the cool thing I can bring about this? So what this actually does is you have your entire backup data set in the cloud now, right? But the cool thing is you can actually recover at a granular level. You can recover an individual file, email back into your production as if it was part of your own environment, but you don't even know it's offsite at this point. You just right-click, restore, and it's done. It's back into your environment. You don't have to re-download that entire data set. Like let's say if you have a 2 terabyte VM out there, you don't need to re-download that entire 2 terabytes to recover that 100K file. Right now with Cloud Connect, you have that backup data set there. Right-click, restore, it's done. All it says is that, oh, this is off-site. This is where it's pointed to. So that's why it's taking off so quickly right now. And obviously, without the Cloud Connect, you can also do full DR as a service as well. Just set it up, one-to-one mirror. We are coming with that soon.
So you can spin up a VM for somebody off-site?
No. So, no. Sorry, finish the question.
What do you mean by DR? You're providing DR services?
No, this is not a DR service. So if we were to use those terms, this would be backup as a service. I'll just probably throw it out there a little bit. As I said, we're investing heavily in R&D. DR as a service is coming to make it easier for this. So DR as a service, your entire VM service goes down, you spin up the service offsite, right? Backup as a service, what we're talking about is you're just moving your backup offsite, just like the tape, right? You're moving it offsite, but when you need to recover that individual file, now it's really easy to do so.
Well, to add on that, we are working, SoftChoice is working with Robsons to put a Veeam environment in the Robson data center where you're backing up to, so that we can take those backups and restore in the Robson data center. Obviously IP addresses and things would change, so you'd have to have some sort of DNS failovers, like if it's your email, it'd be your MX record.
That's just a DNS thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we are doing solutions like that that we're scoping out. But for this pure play, which is just obviously, we can only talk about backup as a service.
Yeah, as of today. Yeah. But, we'll be making a lot of big announcements as time goes along here on this. This slide, I know I won't go, just for credibility again, for those of you who are thinking just maturity levels, we're at version 8 today already. So it's a very mature product. At every single version, we've always disrupted the market with some sort of disruptive new feature. And right now, we're a couple of years ahead of everybody. At least the mature players. There's always going to be this two-person company that's trying to invent something new that won't exist 2 years later, right? We were like that once upon a time, but very few companies actually grow, stay around, and become this size and this mature. Yeah, so for those of those who are interested in learning more, talk to SoftChoice. They'll be able to help you with licensing and stuff like that. But essentially, we're licensed by the CPU. That's it. Everything I talk about is included. You just choose your edition, standard, enterprise, or enterprise plus.
Physical socket or cores?
Physical socket, so not virtual CPUs, not the cores. It can be 16 cores, 12 cores, 6 core, whatever
Got
it
the
is.
sockets on your
It's
backup
the actual
server?
CPU. No, do not. If it's a target only, you don't need to license it. So if you got active, and you're backing up both ways, like in a more complicated environment, I don't see very many of those. But if you are, then yeah, you have to license it. As long as you're backing it up, then yeah, because there's no longer a target-only node. There's a target-only node, and in fact, I guess a cold site, you only use it for recovery,
Yeah.
and there's no problem. You don't need to license it. And then you don't need to license the Veeam Cloud Connect either. We work with your service provider on that. All you do is just purchase the service from your cloud provider, but it's powered by Veeam, we take care of the licensing with them. And yeah, so we fully support vSphere 6 today if you're on VMware. And we're talking about full support. We're not talking about, oh, we're compatible with it. All the features in vSphere 6, we fully support it, which is very, very cool. We're always the first to the market on this. Kudos to our R&D. Some promotions, you can go into our site and take a look. I want to get endpoint backup. This just came out a couple of weeks ago. This is our first physical backup tool. It's marketed for desktops, physical Windows desktops and laptops. That's what we're marketing it for. It can be used to back up some physical servers. But the cool thing is that you can use this. It backs up to the same Veeam repository. And you can recover from that. So let's say your physical server goes down now, you recover and you spin up the VM and you can have that service running now. So
But that's the whole point. You would have to have a Veeam product to have visibility into these backups.
yeah, you can use the free edition if you wanted to as well. It's free support obviously at that point. But if you're a current Veeam customer, then you would be supported right on that. But this is version 1. This first iteration. Our history shows that we always come up with the free edition first. And then once we add more features, then it'll be a standard edition or enterprise edition. But as of right now, version 1. This is very cool stuff, especially for the environments where, I've got a SQL server remaining and I want to back this up with one tool. I don't want to use my semantic anymore. You can use this now. So download it now, give it a try. Even if it's just for your home desktop, laptop, right? Just use it for a home, right? It's very easy to use. Everyone's IT guys in here, right? Might not be as easy as for,
So this backs up a physical
grandma.
machine. This backs up a physical machine.
Physical, yeah, has to be Windows. 2008, 7 and up, I think.
So this is bare metal restores you're talking about.
Yep.
It backs up to what media? I'm sorry, I missed your point.
Anything you want, USB drive, whatever you want.
So this is local we're talking about, local backup. There's
No,
there's no cloud component here?
There's no cloud component.
Unless you did a cloud VPN.
Oh, well, the cloud component, I guess, the workaround would be you back it up to the Veeam repository, and then you move that copy job and you move it over to the cloud.
Does it do infinite incremental backups?
For our incrementals?
Yeah.
I do not know with that product. With the Veeam, obviously, it does, but with that, I don't know.
Are you flying this thing?
Yeah. You all getting free tickets?
Yeah? How much money you guys spending? Come on, tell me first. Sorry. We'll keep it with technology. But I just wanted to let you guys know we are having our own conference there. EMC, Nutanix, I think are going to be there, NetApp. I'm not quite sure who all the sponsors are. Last year we had all of them there. And it's just all talking about availability of data and services in modern data centers. So last year was our first one. We had about 1,500 people. We started marketing it around summertime. And this year we already have over, I think around 1,200 people pre-registered already. So, and the key thing, the VMC training. So that's Veeam Certified Engineer Program. It's an industry-wide recognized certification. $3,000 US for you to take that on your own right now. But if you go to get Veeam on, it's kind of just $650. So almost $2,500 off. So if you want to plan for that now, if you have budget for that, you can budget that in. What can go wrong anyways? Vegas, same week as Halloween. Nothing can go wrong. Awesome. Any questions? Awesome. Great. Thanks.
Okay, we're a little over time, so I'll just fly through this. So lightning talks. I didn't have any emails through the week. Nobody watched the lightning talk. This will probably be a very quick one anyway. FIFA prize draw. So we're going to take everybody's. We won't do it now, but we'll take everybody who RSVP to this event and announce that in the next couple of days who won that. But we got 2 tickets from Trend Micro for that. So thanks to them. Next event. So keeping with the first Wednesday of every month, it'll be on the 3rd of June. The venue is to be announced yet. That's because we're doing something a little bit different. So the topic for next event is let's get our hands dirty. I don't know if I'll change that or keep that. That's something that just popped into my head very quickly. But the idea is that we're going to change things up a bit. It's not going to be the traditional up here presenting in a straitjacket, that sort of normal presentation. It's going to be, we're going to have a Q&A panel with cloud experts up here for everybody to grill and ask questions. And also people like end users, ourselves, that are using the cloud, to come up here and give us some examples of their experience, real world experiences in the cloud. Is it as great as all the marketing hype tells us, or is it better? So then we're going to have some workshops, so anybody technically focused, we're going to have some workshops for you to try out some stuff around the cloud. Maybe we'll get some Nutanix hardware in and you'll be able to actually hands-on touch and see everything. And for those that aren't technically driven and more business orientated, we're going to have networking and food for those people. And then a cloud war. So we're going to, I don't think we'll get anybody official from any of the big cloud players to get into this, but we're going to do some test runs to see which clouds can do certain things the fastest. So obviously some are geared up for different things better than others, and we'll see which ones win in that little war that we have. And yeah, we're going to try to make it as hands-on as possible, and more prizes. Talking about prizes, if anybody wants any little gifts from Nutanix, I've got some gifts over on the side. Come and see me afterwards. And yeah, let me know if you want to do a lightning talk, if you want to volunteer to help us out, put this together, put the chairs up, the food, drinks and all that. And always looking for sponsors. The videos will be up. Chris should have them up on Coffee Cloud within the next week. And yeah, feedback. I'd love to hear feedback to make this a better event for you guys. Oh, and I just wanted to call out volunteers. I know I did it earlier. I kind of did my slides back to front, I guess. I love Drew's picture. Is Drew still here? Very thoughtful. And then Chris, I've called Allied, and the guys from Soft Choice. We've always got different people here from Soft Choice helping out with setup and pack up at the end. So thank you to them. And that's it. Thank you for everybody coming out. If you want to contact, Jamie didn't have the exactly easiest LinkedIn address to put up. I was trying.
I gotta change it.
I was like, surely you've picked a shorter address or something.
There's not a lot of Jamie Hawk.
I even tried cutting out the numbers at the end and it didn't work. So yeah. Oh, and I didn't put didn't get around to putting Tommy's up. But if you want to get in contact with Tommy, just let me know and I'll get him up. I've accidentally left Matthew from last talk's details up there. So yeah, I can put you in contact with Tommy if anybody's interested. So thank you, everybody. Good job.
Thank you for Soft Choice and Nutanix movie last week.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the events, right? Yeah.
Yeah.